The question today is, how much are you accommodating other people, other things, other circumstances in your life? You see, coming from a background where I was a people pleaser, there are still layers within me. As we spiral and as we grow and as we expand, new layers of old patterns will arise. And one that has risen for me recently is around accommodation. It's around what I call shifting and moving away from your center, because your natural programming, let's remove the word natural, because your programming has been to look to the external environment to see what is out here. Now, there's a number of stick figures here representing people, but these could be people, these could be places, these could be things, these could be events, right? What is it out here? What are the variables out here in the environment that you are consistently accommodating or shifting to meet in your life? The simple thing is, lots of times as people pleasers, we're not aware of all of the ways that we have learned to accommodate and to please other people. So much so that what I realized in the last few years is that I take direction from these variables in the environment. And these variables in the environment help dictate for me what decisions I want to make, what actions I want to take. And there are times where I won't do certain things, where I have a very hard time making decisions in my life or taking actions in my life because I'm waiting. I'm sitting here and I'm waiting for information to come in from somewhere or someone or something. And based off that information that comes in, then that tells me how I am supposed to respond. It tells me there is a need to be fulfilled. And then I can happily fulfill that need, right? Because the fulfillment of that, the practice of that, used to give me my meaning and my purpose. This came to light here recently because I've been thinking over the past year or so, what do I actually want to do? What does Michael want to do? What things in my life do I want to do? And the question just kept eluding me and kept eluding me. And it's something that I have beat my head against the wall for quite some time now. And I finally just had to let it go. And as I let it go, I started to have some awarenesses come up. Now, one of these awarenesses came up while I was in my martial arts class practicing with my instructor. We were going through a drill, right? He was on offense. He was going to be the one doing the striking. And I was going to be the one in this particular drill that we're doing that was on defense that was going to be doing some of the blocking. That was the main piece of the drill. We began the drill. He began doing his striking. I began doing my blocking. And this is the way it went. Blocking, 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 and the drill. He says, how was that? We talked through it a little bit. He says, do you notice where you are now as opposed to where we started from? I looked down. I was a little confused. He said, you've been inching backwards the whole time. And as I looked down, as he said those words, I was like, he's right. Somehow I had moved back a good 4 feet or so during that drill. Rather than staying stationary and staying right there where we were, I had moved back. I had shifted back and shifted back and shifted back. He said, let's take this now and let's have you, because whether you're on defense or not, you want to be in as much control of yourself and the environment as possible, right? So this time, let's have you move forward. Set your mind consciously and intentfully move forward, even though you're in defense. You're in the defensive position. You're the one blocking. I want you to make sure you are moving forward. And it was a way to make sure that the default in me wasn't running of simply moving back. Here's the information. Here's the information. I'm backing up. I'm shifting. I'm accommodating, right? Instead, it's no, he's still going to be offense. I'm still going to be defense. I'm still going to be blocking. But this time, as he's doing his things, I am going to dictate and move forward, as opposed to waiting on everything and all the information to come from him. And the interesting thing about that was when we made that change and we had the experience of it the first time, and I ended up by default just backing up and not even realizing it, versus when we intentionally said, Michael, set your mind so that you are inching forward. The energy within me felt completely different. When I was moving backwards, when we did that exercise and I didn't realize I was moving backwards, all my attention and awareness was out here. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? How do I need to move? How do I need to shift? What do I need to do? It was all based on things that were coming in information-wise to me. When I moved and had my intent and said, we're going to move, I'm still on defense, but this time I'm going to make sure I move forward, I wasn't waiting so much. The information was still coming at me, but I was also actively engaged, more actively engaged in saying, I may be on defense, but this is where I'm going. You are not going to dictate and control the entirety of the situation. The energy in all that changed so much. And as we had that awareness in that simple martial arts practice, as my instructor brought that to my awareness, it suddenly dawned on me, this is still showing up in my life. I thought I had kind of resolved most of this, but it is still there, and it's a new layer that has come up out of the people pleasing, a new layer that is showing me there's still areas in my life. Where are those areas where I am accommodating, where I am shifting? For instance, right? Maybe somebody wants to, today's a good example. Thinking about potentially, we had discussed, my daughter's in town, and we had discussed maybe getting together, grabbing a bite to eat here later. So what I noticed during the course of the day was suddenly at 11 o'clock a.m. this morning, I was going to get a bite to eat. Next thing I know, it's 3 o'clock. Next thing I know, it's 3:30. Still don't have any solid plans of what's going on yet. But by this time, I'm thinking, oh, this is that accommodation. This is me at a subconscious level going, well, there's no need for me to eat, because if I eat, about the time I eat, I'll get a call that says, hey, you want to go out and grab a bite to eat? And then I won't feel like getting a bite to eat because I'll be full. So instead, I just shifted. I just accommodated what was in part real and what was in part a story and a perception of mine in terms of how this might play out. I was looking for information, for something to come in that would then give me the information that says, okay, now I have something to work with. And then I could make a decision and take an action, rather than just beginning from here and going, you know what, it's 11:30. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm hungry. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to eat. And, if a phone call happens to come or a text happens to come or whatever in an hour, well, then maybe we won't go get something to eat, or maybe we'll go get something to eat and she can eat and I won't. But I noticed this accommodation, I noticed this shifting going on, and I noticed that there are still places within me that I need to be, directed, and I need to be centered, aligned within myself, and making decisions and taking actions. And one of the games that I played while I've been learning this and while I've been working through this here recently is saying, what if I was to take all these external variables out of my life? Like I said, these can be friends, these can be family members, it can be people that you're very close and intimate relationships with, these could be jobs, it could be work, it could be any number of things, right? That are out here that you may be waiting on for information. What if I was to take them all away? Right? in my mind, mentally remove all of them. Say, this is me, right here. Without all of these outside variables that I'm waiting on, that my nervous system is saying, we need some information in order to make a decision, in order to take an action. It's like, no, we are going to remove these. And we're going to say, now, what does Michael want to do? This is a very disorienting place to be for somebody who has taken their decision and actions based off of cues in the environment. And then based off of those cues in the environment, shifted and adjusted and accommodated accordingly. The number of times in my life where I may have something scheduled in the past here, where I may have had something that I wanted to do, that I had set up for myself. And sometimes it may have been even with other people. But then a new piece of information comes in from somebody else or from something else. It says, oh, hey, there's a bigger need over here. Can you do this now? I really need this now. And the number of times that I would say, oh, I didn't really want to, but I would say, you know what? Yeah, internally the conversation would be going on that, this isn't that big of a deal, this thing I already have set up. I can shift that and I can move over to here and take care of this. This thing that I shifted here, I can move it over here. Everything will be just fine, right? And to do that on occasion is sometimes a necessity, but to do that as a consistent way of operating, and that's the key. To do that as a consistent way of operating and functioning leads to an unhealthy way of being, an unhealthy relationship with certain aspects of yourself, right? And that type of constant shifting, that type of accommodation, that type of not really being honest, that type of not speaking your truth, that type of not letting your yes be yes and your no be no, because how can you have such solid boundaries and rigid yes be yes and no be no answers when new information could come in at any point, right? And that leads to that constant shifting and accommodation, in my experience, leads to a repressing and a suppressing of what you truly want, of what you truly need, of feeling like if you don't shift, that you have to have some sort of justification as to why you didn't want to shift and accommodate this need or this perceived need over here. And many, many times, the things that I have thought to be as critical needs were actually really perceived critical needs. Even needs that were brought to me as though they were critical. If I was to push back on them a little bit, they weren't as important as as I was made to believe initially, right? If you are operating this way over time, because these are pieces of you that are sacrificing parts of you. This is you sacrificing parts of yourself to accommodate other people, to please other people, to please the situation. And over time, that will fester inside from the repression and the suppression and the lack of integrity and the not being honest with yourself about what you really want, not expressing what you really want and what you really need, right? And you are out of center. You are out of your center. You are operating out here rather than from in here, this grounded and centered place within. And it will eventually lead to resentment, and that resentment will usually come out towards somebody else, whoever happens to be in the environment at that time, and it will generally come out sideways. And it will be an unhealthy exchange in some way, shape, or form. So I really want you to take a look at yourself and say, if you have a propensity to people please, if you have a propensity to say yes to people, even when you don't want to say yes, or agree with people when you don't want to agree, or somebody asks you to do something and you don't really want to do it, but you go ahead and go along with it, or somebody asks you to do something, but you already have something scheduled there and you feel bad, for telling this person no. So this other thing that you had scheduled, say it's something that you're doing by yourself. And you say, you know what? I don't need to do that. I can shift that to do it later. Even though you really were looking forward to that, you'll shift that and kick it out, and you'll accommodate whatever this is, even though your heart is really over here saying, I really wanted to do this. If you notice those types of things in your own life, then I encourage you to kind of check in with yourself. Start asking your body and your being, where do I accommodate? Where do I shift my needs, my wants, my desires on a consistent basis for other things and other people out here? Where am I people pleasing? Where am I consistently accommodating at the expense of myself? And then as you become aware of that, then you can actually work with it, just like we did in that martial arts drill. Once it was brought to my awareness, then we were able to work with it and say, we're going to practice it now intentionally by saying, while we're doing the drill, it is my responsibility to go forward. It's not my instructor's responsibility to pull me forward. It's my responsibility to move forward and to have my intent and have my focus and know where I'm going with that. That is the way that we should consistently be operating, where we are directing the path that we want to go. Because if you allow everything out here to direct you, you will end up jumping from here, then over to here, then out to here, then back to here, then over to here, then back to here. And all of these jumps are micro ways that you are abandoning yourself, that you are invalidating your own needs, that you are dishonoring your own needs, your own desires, your own wants, your own expression, your own voice, whatever it is. And over time, that will lead to unhealthy relationship with yourself, which by extension then leads to unhealthy relationships with other individuals. I always talk about coming home to this place here, right? And it's because I've lived so much of my life out there in the people-pleasing framework. If this resonates with you, take a moment each day. Whenever you're going to make a decision or take an action, say, why am I making this decision? Is this something that I really want to do? Is it really a true yes for me if I say yes to this? Or am I saying yes only because I don't want to let the other person down, or I don't want to have a confrontation of any sort, Is my yes, yes, and is my no, no? Can I trust myself in that? And the fact is, it's a practice. If you're not used to clearly letting your yes be yes and letting your no be no, and if you're used to operating out there in a people-pleasing framework, you may not actually know what is a true yes for you and what is a true no for you. So start with the smallest of decisions and the smallest of actions, and little by little, you will become more and more comfortable with this space here, with living from this centeredness in you. And a lot of people may interpret this as being selfish, but operating from a grounded center of you is really the only way anything works. Otherwise, you are operating from a fractured sense of self. And I believe I'm going to leave that where it is for the moment. I encourage you to go within, to look within if any of this has resonated with you. And as always, blessings and love to each of you.